Thank you, everybody. So today, as Holly mentioned, I'm going to walk through something called RCS Business Messaging. And has anybody in here ever heard of RCS Business Messaging? Familiar with it, aware of it? My man Joe is, I know that. I've been talking to him for a while about it. All right, so I'm just going to get started, and I'm going to go through a couple of slides. I'm going to go through some demos, go through some different use cases. I can make time at the end for questions, but if you guys want to ask questions throughout the presentation, that's fine also. Happy to keep it very casual and kind of very informal from that perspective. So the first thing is, who am I? She went over that a little bit already. But again, you know, kind of the joke is like, why should you pay attention to anything I have to say, right? Like, why am I up here talking about this? Because I've been in the messaging space for 20 years, have multiple patents, helped tons of companies send lots of text messages, mobile messages, generated lots of revenue, speak at events, help colleges and universities, so kind of a subject matter expert, if you will. So on the screen, this is a big part of what I'm going to talk about today, is you have what's on the left and you have what's on the right. And as the question says at the top, you know, which experience would you prefer? And I think it's pretty clear and pretty straightforward that we would all prefer the experience on the right-hand side. But the reality is the experience on the left-hand side is what we're dealing with all day, every day, all of the time when we're going out on our phones and trying to interact in the mobile web and messaging spaces and different things like that. And on the right-hand side is RCS. And what's happening to kind of move this forward is there's a big shift that's happening. First we had the desktop apps, then we had web apps, mobile apps. Now what's happening and what RCS is driving is this ability to create and integrate and embed micro apps into messaging applications. So what that means is now instead of just a simple text message and texting back and forth, now there's actually interactivity, there's actually data flowing, there's the ability to accomplish tasks, and there's a lot of different use cases that can be accomplished. And I'll go through a couple of those. So again, when you think about RCS, right, really, nobody's really heard of it, but if you look at this purple line here, it's growing like crazy. And it's growing like crazy globally, not just in the US. So what is RCS, right? I say RCS, RCS. What does it even mean? It stands for Rich Communication Services. It's really a pretty poor name, but unfortunately, I wasn't in the room when they came up with names and all of that, so RCS is what we have for now. It stands for Rich Communication Services, and really, it's what's happening on the right-hand side. And all of that in this video is happening inside of the text messaging app on a phone. And I'll show you some demos and some examples here in a second. So why should you really care? There's quite a few reasons. SMS and MMS and text messaging are incredibly powerful and incredibly effective. Some of them we like, some of them we don't like, right? So you have kind of your marketing and promotional messages, and then you have what I call your utilitarian messages, flight alerts, sports scores, appointment reminders, all of those things that we pay attention to. And it hasn't changed in 30 years, which is really where RCS is bringing a lot more functionality to the table, integrating a lot of the conversational aspects that are happening right now with all the AI tools that are out there that are really pushing that forward. And then, you know, SMS. Everybody spends time in their text messaging app on their phone and in their inbox. That's how we communicate with friends and family. And that is how we are getting a lot of the information that we're getting directly to our devices. And what RCS is doing is it's bringing all of those together in one place. So RCS is already here. Last year, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Google, and Samsung. If you can imagine that conference call or that meeting in the boardroom where all of these people are all together and agreeing on anything is a big deal. And they did last year agree to roll out RCS on every new Android device. So we'll talk about Android and Apple a little bit also. And basically, by the end of the year, it's projected that there will be 90 million devices in the US, so roughly 30% of all of the cell phones will support RCS Business Messaging. From a global perspective, to put it all into context too, around Android and Apple, Android pretty much dominates the globe from an operating system perspective. So they have anywhere, depending upon, right, lots of different stats and stuff, but anywhere from 70 to 75% of all of the cell phones. And then you'll see the US is now predominantly iPhone. Until last year, Android was the dominant operating system in the US. So it was September, August last year when Android actually, or when iOS actually took over Android. So this is important because when I go out and I talk to a lot of people, if you have an iPhone, you think everybody has an iPhone. And then you get into this whole blue bubble, green bubble, who's got the phone and this and that, and right? At the end of the day, it's a phone. It sends text messages, it makes phone calls, and it goes on the internet. Regardless of whatever the color of the bubble is, it's still accomplishing the same task. And there's a lot of devices that are out there right now. And they just might not be in your group of people that you text with, but I'm sure everybody in this room knows someone who has an Android phone, or multiple people. So they're there, and dismissing them entirely and thinking that iOS and the iPhone controls the world is the wrong assumption. So now what I'm going to do is hit that back button. I got a little ahead of myself there. I will leave it there. I'm just going to jump into some demos, and I'll show you guys some stuff on a phone. Why is this not? It's stuck. Luke, you got any ideas? I'm just trying to switch to the next, and it's just sitting on this. So, just pop out and do it that way? So. Okay, and then I'll hop back in. All right, there we go. Cool. So I've got the phone in my hand, and I'm going to walk you through some demos, live demos. All of this is real. It exists. It's running. It's out in the world. It's not videos and smoke and mirrors and all that kind of stuff. Just so you know. So I'm on an Android device. Now I'm on the text messaging app of that Android device. Typically, what we are used to is messages like this. So this is a text message, 160 characters. Basically, if someone clicks on that phone number, then I know that it worked, because that's how I track it. There's no way to know if anybody read it. There's no way to know if anybody opened it. There's no way to know if anybody forwarded it. There's very, very little analytical information that is associated with text messaging. Then you class it up a little bit, and now you have what is called MMS. So what MMS does is it expands upon SMS and gives you the ability to send a piece of rich media, a GIF, a video, an image, something like that, and then also gives you 1,600 characters, more characters than you would ever need. But again, not a lot of visibility. The only way I know that it really worked is if someone clicks that link.
So question about that. So you say you can tell when someone clicks the link. How do you get that data about when the link was clicked?
It's through whatever software or platform you're using.
So
When you're,
Twilio?
it's really more the link shortener, whatever the link shortener is that you're using. So like a Bitly. Just as an FYI, the carriers are really frowning on Bitly links these days. They basically just block them because they think they're spam. So
What would you use instead of Bitly?
there's a bunch of them that are out there. So it's just not Bitly. Anything else. That's the big thing from that perspective. And they haven't really mentioned anything else or any other versions of URLs, but that one's been associated with spam, so they're trying to get people to avoid that. So then I scroll back up, and now you see the different icons that are on the left-hand side, and some of them have little blue bubbles. So when I click on one of those, now I have what is called RCS. And now what I'm doing is I am integrating into the text messaging app the ability to create predefined options, set up different menus, and really allow a user to go through a process by simply tapping their way through, because I've designed this journey in a way that is set up so someone comes in, they figure out what they're looking for, then I'm starting to capture information around them about what size, what color, how many they want, all of this. And now I've basically taken this user inside of the text messaging app on a mobile device from, the top of the funnel, the beginning of the journey, however you refer to it, the whole way to the bottom, where now I have this person ready to buy a product and I haven't opened the keyboard once. I haven't typed anything. Because on a mobile device, typing is the #1 friction point. And the more that you can eliminate typing and move into a world of tapping in general, the higher your conversions will be, the higher engagement, higher attention, all of those different things. Sure.
So is the interaction under, let's say for example with RCS deliver, and let's say for some reason they're down in the caves or they're past shirt or is all the media and the conversation history stored on the phone, or is it being dynamically retrieved?
It's all running through IP-based traffic, so you need Wi-Fi or the internet
So if they scroll back
for it to work.
they'll have to be connected during the scroll back experience.
Correct. I mean, all of the history is saved, but for it actually to,
Not the interaction part, but if they want to look back at the previous picture.
yeah, yep. It's all asynchronous. It's all stored in there.
That's stored on the local device.
Yep.
So even when they're offline, they can still see the.
They can see the history, but they might not be able to interact with it because they're not connected
The history part.
to the internet. Exactly, right. So that's kind of an e-commerce example. Here's a weather example. This gets kind of into the micro app functionality. So now what I have the ability to do is we've tied in some weather data. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my actual physical location, as soon as this thing pops up, to be able to then get access to the weather. Live demos are always fun. We'll give that one a second. Gets to wake up a little bit.
So do you use like an API to retrieve?
All day long. All day long. That's exactly what this is all about. So it's about moving data back and forth. It's about opening up this channel. It's about more visibility. It's about capturing more data. It's about understanding your customers, all of it. Because now you actually know, what they're doing. So here's one we deal with all the time right now, right? Everybody gets a text message about an appointment reminder. And typically we reply C, B, A, whatever it is, and that's it. But again, this is considered a high value text message because we're paying attention to this. This is important to us. So now that you have my attention in a world of RCS, I can create an entirely different experience where you can confirm that appointment, and now I can add it to my calendar, and I tie all of these different pieces together that are already on the phone where I can get directions, call, or email. But really, the big pain in the butt is rescheduling, because there's really not a way to do that automatically without calling somebody or I just did it the other day. I had a dentist appointment this morning. I called yesterday. I texted yesterday and said, I'm not going to be able to make my appointment, and then they called me right back. So there's like the break, right? So you fix that by using tools like RCS or other conversational tools, and now I click on earliest openings. So now it tells me what the earliest openings are, and I'm interested in that one, so I pick that one, and then I hit confirm, and now I've rescheduled my appointment. Right? So it's things like that where there are all of these different things that we're doing on a daily basis, all of these little tasks where these micro apps that are embedded into the messaging app on the device can take care of very easily. But in the process, also because now I have your attention, now I'm going to upsell and cross-sell you. So if I'm a dental office, I'm going to tell you about tooth whitening. If I'm a car dealership, I'm going to tell you about windshield wipers, tires, whatever it is, because I have your attention and I can take you further into the experience and share more information with you. So another one is a restaurant example. So in here, I want to place an order. So I click on place an order. It's going to verify my mobile number, and that's the unique identifier that exists out in the world so that everyone knows who I am and that I can verify who I am. And I click yes, and then I go to menus. So now I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If I want to look at the breakfast menu, I can, and I can see everything that's available. And then lunch, and then dinner, it looks like I have to make a reservation. So again, I'm going to choose a day, go through a similar process with the appointment reminder. And then 7:30. So then I'm going to confirm my appointment or my reservation at the restaurant. And now it's confirmed. So now I can add that to my calendar. Again, all of the same things, right? It's about these little tasks and making these different interactions much easier. And then inside of here, here's another one that's kind of a retail example. So I want to view the items. And once I do that, this carousel will pop up. It's supposed to. I'm not sure. There we go. So there are the different items. Now I want to check the availability of an item. And I want to pick it up in the store. And those little arrows mean there's more options, so I need an extra large. And I want to find the closest location using a zip code. So it's going to go out, and that's the closest store. So now I want to have them hold the item. And when I click on hold item, is this your mobile number? We'll hold for 24 hours. Yes. I click yes. Now I have a QR code. I can walk into the store and scan the QR code and pick up my product. Again, it's about not necessarily sending more messages to people and bothering people more. It's about really understanding how people are using their mobile phones and their mobile devices and creating experiences that reflect the screen size and the tapping and we're moving around and doing things while we're doing all these different things and making it very simple and very easy versus trying to repurpose all of this internet technology that was never designed for a phone to try to make all of these experiences work. Because really the only thing that's been designed for a mobile device at this point is an app. And if you have ever tried to develop an app, market an app, promote an app, get people to download an app, keep people on your app, it's very difficult. The text messaging app is always there. It's always available. We're always in it. We're always using it. We're always communicating with people through there. Any questions on any of those demos?
Are there any other, I'm assuming this is still developing technology, they're adding more functionality to it. Aside from the carousel, image carousel,
Yep.
are there any other interesting widgets or visuals that are available now or something that are coming down the pipe?
So what they're doing at this point is, as you said, it is very early stage, but the reality is at this point, there's close to 1 billion devices globally that support RCS right now. And in the US, there's 30 million devices right now that support RCS. So when I say it's already here, I don't mean it's already here on like 4 phones and then Joe and Bill and they're in the basement and they're like, hey, look at this RCS all day long. It's up and running in Brazil, it's up and running in Mexico, Italy, Germany, UK, Japan, India, where there's full-blown campaigns running. This messaging is going out. It's really being driven by Google, so they're a big proponent of it, and obviously they own the Android operating system, which then ties into Google and Android and all of those things.
I guess my question is more just actually from a technical perspective. Like, are there any other widgets such as, for example,
Yep.
And so can one of the widgets be take a picture with your camera? So they don't have to go to the camera app, take a picture, save it to the device, and come back and upload it.
So at this point, right. So at this point, like all of the pieces aren't like integrated into RCS. So in that example, you would go to the camera, take a picture, come back into the conversation, hit add the picture, and then send the picture. But because, the word API was mentioned, this, you can do whatever you want. The sky's really the limit, right? If the access is open and accessible and you can get to any of that data or any of that information, you can pull it in. You can pass it back. You can send it to a CRM. You can take your entire Shopify store and move it into RCS. So there's parts of it that are about the RCS protocol and the tool, and then it's really more about opening it up and then being able to have that data flow back and forth.
I am not familiar with this, at all as far as being owner and operator, like in my business uses this, but as a consumer, yes. So I'm curious, like, when you say to take your Shopify or I guess Etsy store and put it to RCS, basically you're just, is it like creating a bunch of landing pages, or is it you choose the RCS company and then that company kind of creates these pages that you were just showing here?
Correct. So we are the RCS company that creates the experience. There are three pieces. One is at the carrier level. The carrier has to support RCS. Then the device has to support RCS. So now you have the ability to deliver an experience to those users, but now someone has to create that experience. And that's what we help people do, is create those experiences. So in the example of a Shopify store, we create a template. And that template then connects to a Shopify store and pulls in the information as it's requested. It pulls in the pictures, it pulls in the different categories, because it's going out and it's actually using the store brain to run everything. We're just surfacing all of the content and extending it closer to the end user. Other questions?
I have a question.
Over here?
Around error handling. So say like if the endpoint changes and using the API.
Yep.
Do you get any notifications that, this isn't working anymore? Or how do you find out that your API connection is broken?
It's a great question. I am not a technical person, so I don't know exactly all of the ins and outs and what happens in the background. But there's error codes. We have a full API for all of this, and it's all built, to make it very simple. So it's not like you connect and then you hope it works. Like, it's all running and working, and there's codes, and you're getting things back that stuff was successfully sent, and like it's, big scale stuff, enterprise scale stuff. So we talked about RCS a little bit. We talked about SMS, MMS, right? A joke. It's like going from black and white to color television. And then to talk some more about some of the other features. At the top, you'll see the shield. You'll see the name of the company. All this verification is very important, because now we're getting messages from a 10-digit number, from a 5-digit number, from all these weird things. We don't really know who anybody is. And that's what RCS does also. You get all of the branding, rich media. We talked about QR codes. And again, down here, it's really about making it simple for the user to get what they want. I'm trying to accomplish a goal, and the harder you make it for me to accomplish that goal, the more I'm going to go somewhere else. And that is just the nature of how it all works. So it's very important to make things really simple, as we all know, and that's, again, a lot of what this is doing, along with, I talked about it a little bit, and we'll bring it up at the end. Now you have access to all these metrics. Like, I know when someone read something, I know when someone looked at it, I can set up something so I know if someone shared it, I know if they came back, I know how much time they spent, I know what they pressed, I know what they typed, I know everything about what's happening. So now all of those interactions and all of that data can be surfaced and it can be used in multiple different use cases.
If my customer has an iPhone, is all this still run the same on that iPhone, or is it just not going to work on there?
So RCS does not work on iPhones yet. So what we have put in place is what we call a web view, which is basically taking that same experience that I showed you on an Android device and then sending a text message, you click a link and you go into the same experience, and that link is tied to that user, so we know who that user is in the browser instead of them being anonymous. So it basically works the exact same, and I can show you an example of what it looks like too. Not ideal by any stretch of the means, but it is a much better experience than what really exists today inside of a browser. And it works better. So from a results standpoint, once I get to that, it's actually converting much higher. Also, when people are pulling in a good CTA and image and all those things, and we're seeing probably if you have a benchmark of, we had a customer at a benchmark of 5%. Using that, they got a 14% click-through rate. So
it won't feel like text, and it's additional steps, but it works.
it's one step, and then you're in a browser, and it looks exactly the same.
Just based off that, do you know if Apple is trying to adopt RCS or not at all?
So at this point, right, you have Apple and Google. They're not friends by any stretch of the means. So they're going to butt heads forever. But at some point, you have 1 billion devices that support RCS. You have carriers that are dumping tons of money into integrating RCS into their networks to be able to support it and to have a portion of your network that you can't monetize, which is the ultimate goal for RCS and the carriers, is a monetization strategy. Then it gets into, does Apple need Verizon or does Verizon need Apple? So what's going to really get them to move is going to be, pressure from consumers, just the fact that there's this cool thing and they don't have it. Or like we saw with the new iPhone, the EU is going to say you have to support RCS, and then they'll support RCS. Now, will they support RCS everywhere? Again, that's another question. So, to be seen. Apple does have something called Apple Messages for Business. And Apple Messages for Business is very RCS-like. So it's not a big stretch for them to just start to support the RCS protocol. Because they already have carousels, they already have verified messaging, they already have all of those things built into Apple Messages for Business. I wish I had a better answer. Again, I walk around, people have iPhones, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I got an iPhone. And I'm like, does anybody have an Android? Can I talk to somebody with an Android? But the reality is, in the US, it's about 50-50 right now. Go ahead.
As a consumer, is it safe? Are there any scripts that's running on the phone? Is it like pulling part of the browser in so that all the vulnerabilities, surfing, phishing, things like that? Do we have to worry as a consumer when those types of concerns? Or is it just images and meta tags that are moving back and forth? Define the button and define the image of the script.
So from a security perspective, it's a hard question to answer, right? Because anybody can go and hack anything. So I can't tell you that it's 100% secure and nobody's going to be able to find some vulnerabilities with it. What I can tell you is the technology has been around for 15 years. It's an open protocol that was put together by the GSMA, all spec'd out. Google bought a company called Jibe, and pretty much that's what most of the carriers are using. And that does have some encryption on it. When you go through to set this up, you have to go through a whole verification process with Google, prove who you are. Like, I can't just go and start sending these messages tomorrow. You have to get approved, you have to get that sheet. Like, there's a whole process versus text messaging. I can go and create an account on a text messaging platform, get a phone number, and I'm sending text messages all day. Very, very different.
So Google's acting as a gatekeeper on who can
There will be an absolute gatekeeper, whether it's Google or the carriers. One of the two. All day long.
I just wanted to confirm, you said that the links have a higher open rate or have a higher open rate than?
So in one of the campaigns that we did, and I have a slide on that, we saw using our emulator option that there was a higher click-through rate and then conversions also. So once somebody actually clicked through and got into the experience, they were spending more time and more engaged in attention. Anything else? These are all great questions. Thank you, guys. I'd stand up here and answer questions all day. So, attention. I don't really have to read anything on this slide. It's pretty clear. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that everybody keeps trying to use to figure out why it doesn't work. And then there's stuff out there that does work. That is in its infancy, that is becoming more mainstream, emerging, and that's really, a lot of what RCS is about. So here's some different examples. We ran a campaign through an agency in Canada with the United Nations, and they saw a 132% increase in click-through rates using RCS. So just by changing the message and sending the best message possible to the device. Again, there are iPhones and there are Android phones, and you're going to want to send the best experience to the iPhone, but you're also going to want to send the best experience to the Android device also. Because if you can send a better experience to a portion of your audience that increases your click-through rates and you get a better response, that lifts everything up.
So RCS can tell whether the phone is an Android or iOS, and so it will automatically send a compatible message to either device?
You got it. You looking for a job? Go start doing some sales? No, but in all seriousness, it's really about sending the best message possible to the device.
Okay.
And the platform that we have does all of that automatically. And then in the beginning, we can actually tell people, hey, you have a database, that's great. I can tell you how many of those phones support RCS. And then we can just target those devices for testing, piloting. And then if you want to layer on SMS and then links, there's just all kinds of, different variations. Yeah, absolutely. Looks like you got another one.
No, it's almost like you said if you have a database, you can tell them how many phones.
Yep. You can do that via an API, or we can use a list, or either, doesn't matter. We have lots of different ways to do it. And then we did this campaign, again, which was another group up in Canada, mental health. There was a 214% increase in click-through rates. And then our RCS Web View, which is the Apple emulator version, saw 14.3%. So if you look at this number right here, that's pretty good. Considering most people are looking for 1 or 2% increases. And to be able to realize a 330% increase, obviously that's very substantial. And then you can take that out to, all right, I already figured out how to convert all my traffic. I know what my average cost, my order value, How much more money would you make with a 339% increase in click-through rate to your landing page that you already know works? Right? So it's thinking about it kind of through that lens also. Yep. $6 million. I'm happy to talk to you about that after. When we go through it all. So now we're going to go through like a couple of different use cases, just to put it all into perspective, right? We've talked about this big thing, RCS, really cool. Wow, it looks great, Michael. What do I do with it? How does it work? How do I integrate it into my business? So a couple of different ways. One of them is, as individuals are going through these different experiences, you're starting to capture attributes and data around them to better understand them, to be able to deliver them the best experience possible. So now, instead of sending a text message and somebody clicking on a link and going to a web page, and you don't know who they are, and then you have to figure out, and it's a form field, and there's radio buttons and check boxes, and the person is scrolling up and down, and then the phone rings and they leave. Now you have the ability to keep their attention in one place and have that interaction in one place. On the Android devices, on Apple, obviously, there's another step. And you get into conversational commerce, very big these days, kind of a big buzzword. And really, it just is talking about these different types of channels, these different types of interactions, and integrating commerce into those. And then eventually, RCS will support payments. So then that's when it really gets pretty crazy, because then you don't have to leave at all. Then you stay in your text messaging app, you buy things, you pay for things, like it's all lives inside of there. So if anyone's familiar with an app called WeChat in China, it's kind of a super app. That's what I think our friend over at X is going to try to do with his newly found toy that he's playing with, is to develop kind of this one-stop shop, one place to go to do all of these different things. And that is ultimately the evolution of RCS and where your text messaging app on your phone is going to go eventually.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Yeah.
Are you saying that X will, so how this young lady was talking about how there's an integration of different apps that will like organize the data?
Yep.
Are you saying that they're trying to not have that, it would just be one system that does everything? Is that what?
If you read some of the stuff that our friend at X is trying to do, yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. Like he wants to integrate paint, I mean, all kinds of, you can see it all, it's pretty wild. His vision, we'll see. He's got enough money to do it, I know that, so.
I just had Twitter when it first came out many years ago, and now I'm just not so interested.
So then you have feedback and surveys, right? If anybody's tried to do a survey or get feedback on anything, any of that, you know how difficult that is, right? But then you take it and you place it into an experience like this where someone just taps. There's no forms, there's no boxes, there's no rate it 1 to 10, there's no scrolling up and down on the page and checking the thing, right? It's just yes, no, I like it, I don't like it, 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever it is, just bam, 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 very quick. And you get access to all of that data. Then we went through the reservations, we looked at that, we looked at the appointment reminders. So onboarding also, not only from a customer standpoint, but from an employee standpoint. There's the ability to create different workflows and different onboarding workflows to help people understand what's going on, get access to HR information, watch training videos. There's a whole plethora of different things that you can offer. Travel updates, conversational AI, like we talked about, all of that can be integrated into all of this. So one of the big things with AI is companies go out, right? They spend a lot of money, they develop this brain. Now they have all of this AI, and what do they do with it? Typically, right, they might put it on their web page, so on an owned property, and that's it. Because they can't put it anywhere else. They don't know how to. And using a tool like this, you can now take that AI, take that brain, and you can extend that brain and push that information closer to the consumer, and it opens up another channel for you to be able to leverage that investment and also kind of refine those interactions as well. So as we talked about in the SMS world, you have clicks and calls, that's about it. So you really don't even know if it's been delivered. It's just, there's not a lot of visibility into the channel, but it's incredibly effective, right? I've been in the space for 20 years. It's not going anywhere. Numbers are still up. Apps didn't kill it. The next phone didn't kill text messaging. WhatsApp didn't kill text. Like, it's still here and it's still going. And the carriers are very, very excited about RCS and bringing this new functionality. So like here's an example of some of the data. Get different insights, again, understand your customers better. You can't get any of this using SMS and MMS. It just doesn't exist inside of the channel. Someone has to leave the channel and go somewhere else, and then you can start to get access to this kind of information. So why is it going to win? Everybody has a text messaging app on their phone, and everybody uses it. There's nothing to download. There's nothing to upload. There's nothing to agree to. There's nothing at all. RCS is default on every Android device globally right now. Because of that, it's already there, right? It's instantly deployed on your device. And then when you're working with companies like nativeMsg, all of that can happen instantly also. So if there are updates you want to make to the flow or to the questions or the answers or whatever it is, that can all be done in real time. So you're not creating an app, bundling an app, pushing an app out, and then loading it up, and then it sits there in isolation. And if you want to make a change, we got to keep pushing stuff up. It lives out there, and all the brains are over here, so you can just basically update all the information in real time and have access to all of the information in real time. We talked about appointment reminders, reservations, all of those things. Then we talked about Shopify, obviously going from very simple and straightforward to advanced. You can start very small, like we talked about. If you have a list and you have people and they have RCS capabilities, you can start to run tests and just see what happens, how do people respond, and then over time begin to grow, kind of figure out the strategy more and build out on that strategy. SMS and MMS haven't changed in 30 years. So it's actually been longer than that now. So there is a need for a change. There is a need for an upgrade, for an update to that experience to basically be better in line with what they call over-the-top apps, and to really kind of tie those pieces together back into the text messaging inbox on a device. So as I said, find the right partner. What are you trying to accomplish? That's where you always start. And then how do I get there? You define the journey. If you want to connect business systems, you can. We talked about Shopify store, e-commerce, reservations, appointment reminders, all different types of things can be integrated into the channel. Then you create, test, and then you launch it. And then it's a matter of putting it out there in the world. If you have existing lists that people have opted in for with SMS or MMS, you can send RCS messages to those people. There is not another opt-in required. There's not anything anybody has to agree to or anything like that. It's already there. It exists. It's on the device. So, in summary, very conversational and interactive, better metrics, richer media, trusted messages, and that's really what RCS is bringing to the table. So happy to answer any other questions, go over anything else, answer it all. I have no problem. I know a lot of things about all of this, more than I want to admit, but.
Can an ordinary business person take advantage of RCS without really buying into somebody's software or situation that helps set it all up?
Not really. There's not a way to go and create the experiences and launch the experiences without being approved through Google or the carriers, or, like I said, to your point, this is not turn it on and start blasting the world. This is very, very controlled. It's early days. Google is controlling the type of content that's going out, types of messages that are going out. They're staying away from, right, like political. They don't want toxic. They don't want alcohol. They don't want any of that stuff right now. They want it very clean. They want good experiences, and they want it to be, you know, something that is around for a very, very long time. Any other questions? Anything else? All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.